Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at the top 9 keyboard shortcuts in order to make a selection within Microsoft Excel. We'll look at things like Shift Spacebar in order to instantly select an entire row, Control Spacebar in order to instantly select an entire column, as well as things like Control A to select an entire worksheet or Shift F8 to toggle the add selection mode on or off, as well as the ideas of adding to individual cells, whether those cells be adjacent or non-adjacent, with things like Shift left click and Shift right click or Control left click. So join us in this video and let's get started. All right, if you want to download the worksheet, you can find a link to download Apple Inc. Income Statement 2015 in the description section of this video. So, all right, in the videos prior, we discussed how to insert and delete columns or rows. And in order to do that, we went ahead and we selected a column here, and then we pressed the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift equals in order to insert a row. Now, what I love to do is I love to combine some of the keyboard shortcuts we'll discuss in this video with that of Control Shift equals. So rather than come up here with our cursor and select a column, you can actually use a keyboard shortcut. So if you want to select an entire column, you press the Control key and the spacebar. That would instantly select a column. Then you can press Control Shift plus, and that would essentially create a new column. Then you could do a total here or whatever calculation you'd like. If you want to select a row, you could come here and let's say select this row here, and then press Control Shift equals. That would insert a new row. However, rather than do that, you can just place your cursor anywhere in the row that you want to insert, and then press the Shift key and the spacebar. Shift spacebar would select that entire row, and then we press Control Shift plus sign, and that would automatically insert a row. Now, if you wanted to delete a row, you could again use these keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to use Shift spacebar to select that row, and then Control minus in order to delete that row. Let's say we're here in cell E7 and I want to select column E. I could do that by going ahead and pressing the Control key and the spacebar, selecting column E, and then Control minus would delete that selected column. So the combinations of Control spacebar and Shift spacebar, when used with a keyboard shortcut of Control minus or Control Shift equals, are keyboard shortcuts that I find super, super useful. All right, next, if you wanted to select your entire region, so your active region, you could press Control A and would select that entire region. If you then wanted to select everything in your active worksheet, you would press Control A a second time, and it would go ahead and select your entire worksheet. Now, if you're outside of a region and there's no data here, if you press Control A, it would select your entire worksheet on that first attempt. So Control A in an active worksheet or in an active range will select that range first. Pressing it a second time will select the entire workbook. If you're outside of a range and there's no data around you, pressing Control A would automatically select that entire workbook. All right, so let's say that we have some cells selected here, and we want to select the adjacent cells. So we want to select everything here in column C through F for these for this row series, or this range of row 3 through row 6. Now, we can do this by using our mouse and pressing and holding the Shift key, and then clicking on the final cell we want to be included. In that case, it would be that of F6. So that would automatically extend my range to that lastmost cell. In this case, it would be F6. Let's say that I wanted to only select the cells here from I guess it would be F3 to F6, and then here in B3 to B6. Because these are non-contiguous, you can just press and hold the Control key, select the rows that you want, or the cells that you want, and it would add to the groups that you wanted. So that's a kind of a cool series of little tips and tricks that I like using. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and cancel a selection, you should be able to hit the escape key, but sometimes that doesn't work. If you wanted to use what's called add to selection mode, you would press the shift key and the F8 key. Pressing shift F8 would create add to selection, and then you can individually go ahead and select the cells that you want. This is something I find super useful. So again, that is shift F8. So shift F8 would allow you to add cells. If you want to then deactivate that mode, you could press shift F8 a second time. We could say change all those cells to red text. I'm gonna hit Ctrl Z to undo because I don't actually want to do that. All right, the last series of keyboard shortcuts that we'll look at is, say we had a couple of different ranges. We had a range here. We're just going to make the size of these cells all appropriate. All right, so we want to move between this range and this range. You could use your individual keys, or you can use Control left arrow and Control right arrow to move in between individual ranges. And I think this would be true also with using something like Shift F8. So if we had a selection here, let's use Shift F8 to turn that off, and you wanted to move between these individual icons. There are different ways to do that, but I really like using the keyboard shortcut Control right arrow and Control left arrow to move between individual regions. This is particularly useful if they're super far away. So let's say that we have a range here and we want to move to that individual range there. The way that we would do that is Control right arrow or Control left arrow. All right, so in this video, we looked at the idea of using Shift Spacebar to select an entire row, Control Spacebar to select an entire column, Control A to select either entire worksheet or an entire range. We then looked at Shift left click to select a series of contiguous rows, or Control left click to select a series of non-contiguous cells. We looked at using the escape key. We looked at the idea of Shift F8 in order to activate the add to selection mode, which can be pretty useful. And then Control right arrow and Control left arrow to move between individual ranges, or the edge of individual ranges. So with that, in our next video, we'll look at a series of, I think, 7 keyboard shortcuts to more effectively work with an active cell. So we'll look at things like how to use Shift backspace in order to select only your active cell, or Control backspace in order to show your active cell on the worksheet without deselecting items. We'll then look at a really cool keyboard shortcut in order to move clockwise in your individual selection with keyboard shortcuts like Control period, or perhaps you can use Enter, Shift Enter, Tab, or Shift Tab. So join us for that in the next video, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.